Welcome to this episode of They Learn, You Win, the podcast from Skooks. I'm your host, David Wentworth. Today, I chat with Gina Elliott. She is the Senior Director of Franchise Operations for Altitude Trampoline Parks. In her role, Gina works to improve operational processes. She manages franchise training programs, and clearly she's involved in ensuring compliance with regulations. And her business is growing and expanding, and as such, she looks at her training goals to be exactly the same as the businesses. She's trying to enhance profitability, improve guest experiences, and drive workflow efficiencies. So for this episode, Gina and I actually met in person at the ATD conference in Washington, D.C., and we talked about the challenges of training a relatively young, very dispersed audience of franchisee employees and balancing a focus on fun with a need for safety. So let's jump right in. Okay, so Gina, thank you so much for joining me. I'm happy to have you here in person. I don't get to do this very often, so I'm glad you're able to join me here in the room and have a podcast face-to-face. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about Altitude Trampoline Parks and your work there, knowing that it's a very franchise-heavy company, and I love talking about the strategies and challenges around learning in that environment. So first, if you could, maybe talk a little bit about what Altitude is and what you guys are all about.
Well, we're one of the largest trampoline parks, one of the largest FECs in the industry. We started 2016 in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're constantly expanding and opening parks. We're actually getting ready to open our 5th park of the year in Schaumburg, Illinois. I was actually just there last week, but our main focus is, our demographic is 3 to 12. So those are the kids that we like to attract in the park. And it's just, fun, family, and, fitness and safety first, obviously.
Nice. And in that environment, so as I mentioned, I think, are you guys basically 100% franchise? So all those locations are owned by other people?
Yes. The majority of them, we do have 2 corporate locations and some corporate affiliate parks.
Yep.
But the majority of them are franchise locations.
Yeah. And so when, that happens in that kind of environment, it brings up a lot of various challenges, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you see as what happens when, especially from, we like to focus on L&D when it comes to training and getting people the information they need. What kind of things do you run into that you have to be aware of when you're trying to train people across a singular brand, but there's sort of different work environments and different ownerships there?
Well, this industry presented a unique challenge to me, and I wasn't used to that. Coming from restaurants, full-service restaurants, that was a more established industry, and this industry is so young. It's only about 20 years old in reality, and the boom didn't really start until 2010. That's when the industry started to explode, essentially. So a lot of it was on paper. So when I first came to Altitude about 3 years ago, we were literally operating on a couple PDFs and a couple manuals. So the biggest challenge, I think, was just getting the systems up and going, getting franchisees to buy in, and just implementing it in general. And just, kind of changing the behaviors and, getting them to do a more digital style of learning, mobile friendly. So, I think we're almost there. We only have a couple more left, and the whole system will be on. So we're really excited about that.
Oh, that's neat. So, what kind of training are you delivering via mobile? What does that look like? What are they? What's the content? What are the concepts that you're trying to deliver in that medium?
Well, the first thing we rolled out was general manager training. That was the most important thing. Obviously, you have to start with the leaders because they cascaded down. Yeah. And then the second piece was court monitor training. Because safety is very important in our parks and very important in this industry. So we wanted to ensure that all our court monitors were trained. Insurance, definitely approved it. Risk experts approved it. So we were really excited about that. And at this point, all our hourly employees have training in place, front desk, party host. So it's a full package as of now. We're just going to continue to build on it. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's a relatively new industry. It's not a lot of, this is how it's done, right? You have to sort of start from scratch. And given that it's an hourly environment, besides just specifically delivering for mobile, how is it that you're able to find the right amount of time to get people to
get the training they need, because it has to be while they're on the clock. They can't do it at home or on, right? And maybe it's different where you're operating, but I know for a lot of companies, hourly employees can't do anything unless they're on the clock. So how do you find the time to make sure that they got what they need, but then they're able to actually do those things, while they're working?
Well, our approach was more blended learning. We have surveys running in the background constantly, and we did survey our hourly employees. And what we found is they want a mix of digital training, and they want a mix of on-the-job training. So for us, it's getting the buy-in, from the franchisees, which I think we're there. And I have a team, 2 fabulous ladies, Alicia and Kennedy, which consistently follow up with the parks, and address any challenges they may have, get that feedback. So our finger's always on the pulse to see how we can change it. But again, a lot of it is just keeping in mind that labor is always going to be an issue. Always. So how do we get them the essentials that they need without overloading the clock? And I think we've gotten it to that sweet spot now. We have it within 3 days of learning, which is digestible. There's OJT. It's not overwhelming.
Right.
So I think overall, we hit the mark there.
Yeah, that's the key. Is you can't, do everything all at once, all up front, and say, okay, now remember all of that, and that's what you need to do to operate. Yeah, that's important. Have you, either previously or still, do anything in person? Is that even a thing because of the way you guys are built?
Well, we're almost there. So the first goal was to get this launched.
Yeah.
And get it out there and get the buy-in, and now it's very well received. Our second step is to actually do some in person, more for the leadership, the operators of the park, the managers. So we're going to kick off our tour hopefully at the end of the year, where we do some regional meetings with those operators and kind of reiterate some of those things that we're focusing on in the digital learning.
It's you have a great opportunity here, because I think in the years I've been talking to companies about the way they build and deliver learning, one of the challenges is everything used to be all in person, right? It was all classroom, all that, and they couldn't figure out how to make that digital transition, and then what's the blend, and then so then you have this opportunity. You're sort of doing it in the reverse, right? Reverse engineering that in person, where you can be far more strategic with what you do when you have people together, right? As opposed to, oh great, we're all together, everybody sit in your chair and listen to someone for an hour, right? There's something, you can probably do some different things. And again, given the industry and the what you guys do, I bet there's probably some opportunities to do some fun stuff.
There's always opportunities to do fun things. I mean, we do work for a trampoline park, so there's a lot of jumping involved there. But yeah, I mean, our goal was, let's just establish the baseline.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it's consistent, cohesive across the board, that everybody gets the same message, and from there we can continue to build on it.
Yeah.
It's all about the building blocks for us. So I think we're at a point now where when we start our little world tour at the end of the year, all the managers will understand what the baseline is for all employees, and now we're going to shift the focus to development for them.
Nice. And, you touched on safety, obviously. It's one of the first things that you bring up whenever you talk about this, which makes sense, right? So I think there's a compliance facet to all of this. And so how much of the safety stuff that you focus on is what you, as Altitude has come up with on their own, saying this is how we need to do it, and how much of it comes from like any third party, right? Are there third parties involved that say, listen, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, you have to have X?
There are absolutely third parties. So the manufacturer dictates what the maintenance looks like, but there's a larger body called ASTM that kind of dictates what the safety is. Think of it similar to like serve safe alcohol or food.
Right.
That's the Bible when it comes to food safety and alcohol. It's very similar with ASTM. So what we've done is kind of take those rules and apply them to our parks, but also bring in those insurance experts, the brokers, the carriers, and those risk experts to help us fine tune it to make sure that our training is best in class in the industry. That's what our goal was from the beginning.
And so ASTM, is that the...
ASTM.
So they have the rules and the guidelines, but they're not actually creating any training around those.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's also, I think, this is my opinion from talking to other companies, that's a good position to be in. I think sometimes regulated compliance training will come also from the governing agency or body, right? And so you have no control over how that training looks, how it's presented. This is what it is. Whereas, like so often food safety, if it comes from FDA or what have you, this is how it is. But you have this chance to say, well, okay, now we know what the rules are. We can develop a way to deliver that so that people get more out of it. What are any unique approaches to the compliance safety focused training versus anything else, like just operations and things like that?
Not really. I mean, I kind of took the approach as look at it like serve safe alcohol or food.
Yeah.
There's risk involved with any business. This risk is just a little bit different, than the restaurant business. But it's layered, right? So there's ASTM, and then there's the manufacturer's guidelines, and then there's the safety rules for every attraction, and that will vary by manufacturer. So you really have to go through it with a fine-tuned comb, and things change. Their standards change, ASTM standards change. So we always want to make sure we're, having the latest and greatest out there to be, in compliance with not only that, but state and local regulations that affect it as well. So,
yeah, and you never know when something new is going to come down. And,
exactly.
Yeah, that's given that it's such a relatively new environment. You never know how that's going to change as companies like yours mature and they realize, oh, we might need something that covers this now. And yeah, so you learn as you go. That's interesting to me too. So in a franchise environment, there's a level of standardization that you want, right, from the experience, right? The customers don't know what a franchise is or isn't, right? To them, it's the brand and it's the experience. Do you have currently or any plans for the people who are at these different locations learning to connect with each other at all, like about either the learning or just in general? Is there like any sort of network where there's a hub where they can exchange ideas about what's going on, as far as the brand goes?
Well, our hub is Skooks. So I recently turned on the wall.
Oh, and I listen. That wasn't a setup. I promise.
Okay.
I love it. The idea that you use that's a centralized place for people to connect. I think that's fantastic. I did not know that.
It is exactly how we utilize that for not only our hourly employees to connect, but also our general managers. So there's a group for general managers. Each park has its own group where employees can connect with each other. We've enabled the friend feature, gamification, anything you can imagine, so we can gamify this and make it into its own little social network so everyone can connect. And we're finding that that's happening park to park. And they're creating those connections, maybe initially there, and then they're kind of branching out on their own. But it's a good start for us, and it's a nice little central hub.
Yeah.
It's all inclusive Skooks for us.
Well, good. And the gamification piece, that's again coming to like understand your audience, right? I would think that employee population, they get that element. They're bought in to the gamification piece. So that's great that you're wanting to leverage that. Do you think is it a thing where the locations can compete against each other, like for who has the most completion or the highest compliance rates or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. It's at one point I had our support center team on there, and they were getting points, and I had to disable that because it was, they were in the lead. So, but we do actually have awards every year at our annual conference for highest completion rate. So there's a lot of parks out there with 100% completion. A lot of them 190% or up. And, I just got a text from one of our franchisees the other day, who's opening a park in Schaumburg, and she's like, I want to win the award. So, I mean, they're ready. They love the gamification, and they love the awards.
Yeah, awesome. And I would hope that, at some point you're able to have like customer satisfaction scores and things like that and say, hey, listen, when you're at 100% completion, it turns out your CSAT scores are better. That's ultimately the goal, right? It isn't just the completion; it's what's the outcome. What kind of levers are you looking at for like customer experience? Do you survey the customers, or is there like on premise, how was your visit kind of stuff? What kind of things like that are you doing?
So we have, our POS providers roller. So they do have a guest experience score that follows like every visit. We're in the process now of integrating certain platforms. We're starting with our HRIS, and we're going to eventually, work on integrating our POS. We want to make it a tech stack. We want to be able to see how, learning impacts the guest experience, how it impacts sales, I know Skooks is working on that business impact module, and once we get that integrated and we'll be able to get that feed, we'll be able to see exactly, when we launch a course, how it impacts sales. We've done some preliminary case studies, and we've actually seen the needle move. So
nice.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's just working on the integration now, so it's not, a lot of the manual labor.
Right. You mentioned the point of sale, tools, the machines, and I think that's another thing that pops up a lot in a franchise environment, whether it's retail, restaurant, or an organization like yours. You mentioned that the mobile piece. What else is there at the parks as far as how people are consuming the digital parts of the learning? Are they running it? Is there a machine, like an iPad or something in the? Okay, oh, that's what it is. Okay, so you're running things through like a centralized iPad that at the location, and then they each can, people can take their turns.
Absolutely. Our challenge is cell phones. So technically, we don't want our employees on cell phones, right?
Yep.
Because you have to keep your eye on the course.
Yeah.
They're basically the lifeguards of the park. So we do have iPads. We encourage them to come in a little bit early and do their training online. That way they can focus on, the parks after.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, especially more so than maybe others, that idea that, the hesitance to have the cell phone. Because I think that's still a big barrier for frontline workers in general is, this is an audience that probably needs it the most, at the moment of need, right there in my hand, what do I need to do this thing? But it's also a population which is less likely to have access to their phones while they're working. But especially in an environment like yours where you really can't have people, looking down and what have you. So yeah, trying to find that balance. I think that's a great approach. Mobile when you can, right? There is that opportunity, so there, you can do that. And then, use the devices in the store. Do you think maybe once you've sort of rolled out the whole POS integration, do you think is that something you'd want to integrate too? Like, so you could do it there, or you just want to keep that separate?
Well, technically they can do it there by opening another browser. So a lot of our front desk employees too, when it's a little bit slower, they'll open a second browser, and do their training there.
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side to that is we don't want them to rush through. We want them to pay attention. All right, so ideally what we'd like to see is them coming in a little bit earlier and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The course is just one piece. There's an exam that follows, and we have on-the-job training that each manager checks off once complete. So we have a lot of layers there just to ensure that not only the managers can see the progress and see where the areas of opportunity are for the employees, but just some checks and balances to make sure that they're paying attention as well.
Yeah, can we talk a little more about that on-the-job training? Like, what does it actually look like? Because I think we talk so much has been said about, on-the-job training, it's so important, so critical. Okay, but what does that really look like? When someone's doing their job, what does training look like when that's happening? So for you, how would you define or describe on-the-job training?
So for a core monitor, if I were to use that, specifically after their course, basically what we would want them to do is go out on the courts and role play safety scenarios or safety incidents. Like if an incident were to occur, how many times do you blow the whistle? When do you call the medic if you need to call the medic? When do you get the parent? What are the different levels? And kind of have them role play that with a manager, so in the event that a real incident were to occur, they wouldn't panic, they would be calm, and they would know how to handle that. I mean, that's just one example. Obviously we have parties, we have members that come in, we are really big on membership, so that's just an example. But to me, and I think we mentioned this before, it doesn't take away from the on-the-job training, the hands-on.
Yeah.
Right. To me, the course is just the baseline, and then you just kind of build on that with the exam, verify that they understood and retain the knowledge, and then do the on-the-job training.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is so important too, specifically the whole safety aspect of it, and what do you do if there is some sort of incident or an accident or what have you, because that's the kind of training, you could present that in a click-through. You could give all the information to somebody and they could click it and they could get past the exam, but there's something about when it happens, and it's the role play. And I had talked to someone who, they had done some VR training for a very large retailer, and they literally did a live shooter simulation, but when it actually happened in the store, they asked the people who work there, like, how did you manage to what happened and how do we manage to save so many people? And they literally said it was the training, it was the simulation training that we did, the role play. It just like when stuff started to happen, it just kicked in. And I think that's for that, when something does happen in a safety issue like that. It's hard to, if you're that adrenaline. What was chapter 4? I don't remember.
Right.
Like you need that muscle memory
Let me
of
pull up my phone and check.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to be. I physically did this thing. I think that's so important, and like that's the extreme example of how critical that is. But I think there's so many other things in training in these environments that like if you can just carve out just enough time to let someone physically do the thing you're asking them to do, but not in a live sense, like, whether it's dealing with customers or whatever, give them the opportunity to just try it, practice it. Then it becomes more of a muscle memory than can I recall this bit of information that I need? So I love to hear that. I think that's fascinating. What any sort of feedback or like what are some of the responses from some of that role play training?
I mean, honestly, it's good. They like it. I mean, they get to understand it and go through it. I mean, it's kind of hard sometimes when you have 16, 17, 18-year-olds trying to do role play on a trampoline when they're trying to do backflips and front flips. So it's getting them wrangled. But it's even, down to the socks. I think our, guest conflict, we have a guest conflict scenarios course. And one of the most common things they deal with is someone bringing in competitor socks. Something literally that simple. And like, how do I address that without upsetting the customer, right? For a $3 pair of socks. So give them the socks, it's like, give them the pickle. So, it's even down to those little things. And just every possible scenario we think we're going to encounter, or we have, we've encompassed in the training.
I mean, it's so true, especially that kind of learning audience. Let's be fair. We're talking young people, and the idea that you're going to expect they could have all the confidence in the world that they're going to react a certain way in a situation, but then you won't know until they're actually faced with that. So the closest you can get them to there before it happens. I love that. So you talk about a little bit about expansion, world tour, thing like that. Let's sort of talk future. What are some of the other plans? Like, what do you foresee in the next, I don't know, let's say 6 to 12 months for you guys?
So, a couple of things though. So for L&D, again, we're definitely focused on development. I think we have the baseline now. Now it's, all right, how do we develop these managers to a higher level, right? What are those tools, leadership and development tools we can give them online and little bite-sized pieces and in person? And for Altitude, I mean, we're expanding. We're pretty excited. We're opening more parks. Cary, North Carolina is next, followed by another one in California, Milpitas, and we just keep signing, more and more franchisees. So We're pretty excited about that. Our goal is to get to 100. We're actively working to get there. And then we have our sister concept, the Pickle Pad. We have our first location in Tallahassee, Florida, and they're aggressively signing franchise agreements there too. And the goal is to merge those two brands together. Hopefully we'll see one of those dual branded concepts, sometime later in the year where you have a Pickle Pad and you have an Altitude, and then our other concept, Crave Social Eatery, in there as well. So exciting things happening for Altitude.
I'm going to go on a limb and say that the Pickle Pad is pickleball.
Yes,
all right.
It is. I've not been in it yet.
Yeah.
That's the goal. At some point, I got to get down to Tallahassee so I can actually see what we're about to open.
I do see it. It's funny. There are places near me where there are tennis courts, and I've just the experience of listening to the sound of a tennis ball slowly transform to the sound of a pickleball. Like as you walk by this, everyone plays pickleball everywhere now. So I think that's what so if you have those two things together. And what's the third thing? Is it going to be food?
It's food. It's Crave Social Eatery. So it's a full service kitchen. Right now in our parks, we just have basic, concessions, some pizza, hot dogs, similar to movies, like a movie theater would do. But we're definitely looking at adding those into Altitudes again with the the concept of the Pickle Pad in there as well. So you can eat, play Pickle Pad, and jump on a trampoline. Not at the same time, but,
Well, that's
within the same area.
Yeah. All right. Fascinating. Well, Gina, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking some time. I know we've both had a very long day, so this has been fun to end it this way. Thank you so much. And, I look forward to when you guys come around. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, so if I see something open up close by, I definitely want to go check it out.
Absolutely, and thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for listening to this episode of They Learn, You Win, presented by Skooks. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe in your podcast player, and follow me, David Wentworth, on LinkedIn. I try to distill what works and what doesn't for L&D leaders so you can stay up to speed on the latest insights, ideas, and tech. See you next time.